Is it saying, oh yeah, it says record, yeah, okay. All right. I don't understand these gadgets a lot of times.
I don't do them at all, and I've got to learn more. I used to, want to learn all of these things. Now I don't, but I have to, because if I don't, I won't, get anything done. I can't expect people to constantly.
Well, you do very well for your age. My mom uses a computer, but not like you, She
Yeah.
plays like mind games and things like that, yeah.
Yeah.
But you do emails and all that, and
Yeah, and I used to do much more. I used it for work as well, so
okay.
that, way back. So.
What was it first?
I worked for the Labor Department. I have a teaching degree, but I worked for the Labor Department. I went to school to be a lawyer for our company, but I was interested in it anyway. Really interested in law, but because we had Tom Dewey, who was our district attorney, so he was one of my idols when I was a
Really?
teenager. Yeah.
So you wanted to do something for him maybe sometime?
Well, I just became interested because he had been so successful cleaning out the mob, getting them all.
Oh, did he do? See, I don't know about all that. Yeah.
See, and he was legendary in New York City.
Okay.
So that's what got me interested. And then my father had I been a lawyer, things would have just. It was really needed. It was just as though my father, knew that he needed someone in the family to do that. But
Yeah, you were talking about
taking corporate law, and really I wish, they had let me do what I wanted. I wanted to go immediately, I didn't want to take a BA or anything. I wanted to immediately get my law degree, but they told me because I was a woman, I needed to be more prepared than the men.
gosh,
But, it would have been fine for our business,
right.
for me to just do that, so.
You said before in those years that I used to took 2 years to become a lawyer,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Now it takes like a long
and
time.
Actually, my husband worked for Lilly Tulip, and their company lawyer had never even gone to law school. He just interned with a lawyer. He was from Georgia, and he became one of the top corporate lawyers in the country.
Really?
I forgot his name now. Come to me, but he had just been interned with a.
And that's
law
something
firm
now you could never do that,
Yeah, in Augusta, Georgia. Well, there were plenty of laws. We were always saying they should, every time they passed a law, they should, take one out. But now there's so many laws. It's unbelievable. It's complicate things. One law complicates another.
Right, I know. Yeah, that's.
You could never do that nowadays.
God.
Never.
So, you said you were talking about your father, and maybe when he got his first patent, but you don't really know when that might have been, right?
No, and I don't even know if he ever got a patent.
Okay.
I'm just wondering, because, see, I was away for 11 years. I
Right.
was in Missouri, which is when most of the, the growth came after the war.
Right.
So I was already in Missouri, and
He would have probably had some kind of signed papers from Blodgett, though, that he was getting royalties,
definitely, after the 999 one came out. I wish we could get an old Blodgett catalog, because I think the other pizza ovens were the 960s. I'm not sure of that number, but
960, you think?
yeah, I think they were in the 960s. The number's 960, but
Yeah,
I want to contact them myself.
see if you can
Things
get an
settle
old
down
oven,
for
yeah,
me.
right. See if they have catalogs I just wonder if they saved them.
They must have. My mother had them all. And that's not only Blodgett, she had all of the glass catalogs, all of the, wherever, Vorath, all of them. She used to keep them all upstairs.
So, your mother would have had, like, the old catalogs that your father's first ovens were in then, right?
Yeah. She would have had, she would have been an archive for the restaurant equipment stuff.
Gosh. Well, you don't know
when
what
you
are in your
think of
other
all-
boxes either. Something might be in one of
But
those.
when I think of it, because that was a big area that she used to have. She was really something when I think of it. She did so much hard work as well, but they were young. You can see how young she is now. I was so surprised when I saw how young my mother was in that picture with my brother.
Yeah. And what was this one other picture here that you thought might be an oven, the bottom one underneath here? What did you think that was, Madeline?
Which one? These
That
are
one,
the
yeah.
original ovens, some of the original ones. That's what.
So this is what he worked with first, maybe?
Yeah,
or you don't
these were
know?
I really believe these were some of his first ovens. I know they were, not that I believe they were. They were some of his first ovens.
Does that have a date on or anything?
It doesn't, that I see.
This was probably in the presentation that
Yeah, that my brother was doing.
Right. What does that say down the right-hand side there, Madeline?
Louis Calasanto, Manhattan Avenue.
Okay, can I take a picture like of that? Get close to that. Maybe Scott can try to find out, like through archives, who that was. And find relatives that would say, what year that was and everything. If that'd be important too.
Yeah.
Look at the pizza there. That looks really good.
Yeah, they were delicious.
Now-
Even coming out of those ovens, they were delicious. See, now this one, I bet, held only 2 of those ovens in that deck.
You mean 2 pizzas in each deck, maybe?
I think so, because this was a pretty large one. It fills that whole, that whole section.
Oh yeah. And I asked you before, like he got the stones, right? Or you called them the tiles, right?
Yeah.
And I asked you, and you said you don't remember where he got those, but they must have been good tiles there. They were thick, really thick.
Yes, they were. And as I said, we used to do a great business, replacing them. So.
Isn't it something though that some of those decks lasted a lot of years,
Yeah. But still, they were. It was a lot of years from 50 to from the 50s when I was there to when my father first started out, and they were used so much. So
Right.
we used to replace them.
Your father looks good there in that picture, In this picture right here, right?
Oh, this isn't my dad.
Oh, that isn't your
No.
dad. Oh,
that's my
but he
dad.
looks a lot like him at a distance. I didn't look at him
guess.
close,
Yeah,
So that is the man that owned that.
Yeah. That's my father and mother. That was taken as a picture from.
You mean up there on your
Yeah,
walls? I'll have to
yeah.
take a picture of. So this was, they're very nice looking, both of them. Gosh. And how old were they there, Madeline? Do you know?
I think my father was 7 years older than my mother, so let's say my mother was 54. No, so my father wasn't. He could never have been, but I would say maybe 58 he was, and he died
Okay.
at 59.
Okay.
But
That
this
picture
is-
looks
this
like
is
a
him.
picture of him young, when he was young.
No, it's.
Oh, this
not.
your
It's one of his,
father?
yeah, when he was. I have the big picture somewhere. Oh, I know. I haven't even taken it out of his bag. But this is my father. This is the old picture my aunt just adored my father, and she had this picture for years.
Oh, that's a good picture,
This is
yeah.
when he was 17,
Oh, that's a beautiful picture,
when
yeah.
he just went into the army. He rose from a private to master sergeant.
Gosh. Well, he was
They
sure,
wanted him
he
to-
was sure brilliant, you know.
Yeah, they wanted him to go to,
I'll help you
to,
put that back in there then.
okay, they wanted him to go to officers training school, and my mother didn't want him to stay in the army, and his mother didn't. She had two sons over in,
Oh, she had two sons?
yeah, over in the war. Her youngest and my father was her middle son, and my grandmother went barefoot from Corona. Oh, Corona is very close to the World's Fair site.
Oh, yeah.
All the way from Corona to barefoot walked while they were in the trenches.
Oh, my.
And she was as a sacrifice to this church. It was in not uptown, but it was, sort of midtown New York.
So while I'm here videotaping you, so they had 5 stores there, like 5 buildings?
232 to 242. They didn't have the middle store, though. What would that, maybe that was 238. They had 232, 234, 236, 240, 242. Yeah, it's 5, I guess. 232, 234, 236, 240, 242.
Gosh.
Yeah, and then they had 2 across the street, which was the commissary for where they made the frozen dough.
So that was across the street then. See, I didn't realize that.
Not really right across, but diagonally across. My brother had another option for that.
So how much dough did they make there day? Did you ever know?
A lot, because they supplied the whole fair plus the franchises that they had. And actually, I had a customer up in Middletown that got that dough too.
Where Middletown? Where is Middletown? Oh, in New Jersey. Okay.
Yeah, that was close to where I lived in Monmouth County.
Okay. So did you know the name of them that the customer there was?
They're no longer there. They were on Highway 35. What was their name? I can't remember.
That's okay.
Yeah, it was really a sub shop and deli, and then he sold pizza, and I supplied the dough. He bought an oven from me.
Gosh.
And then I also, and that woman's son is still in business in Red Bank. And what was her name? She had a concession. She was in a bar, the brothers bar, and I think he used to call that Brothers Pizza and Bar. Well, I know that pizza was on his sign.
Okay.
On his neon sign at the bottom, or I can't remember. But I sold her that plus the dough retarder, and she wanted to make sure she had a 16 or 15-year-old son, I can't remember, and she wanted to make sure that he wouldn't get in with drugs.
Okay.
Drugs were starting. I didn't even know it at the time that it was starting, but she told me that things, and I'm pretty sure she meant drugs, that the kids were getting into
trouble.
Yeah, so she said, I don't want my son to get in with any crowd like this. So and she was a widow, or maybe she was a divorcee. She's a wonderful lady. So I sold her that. I was beginning to get clientele.
Oh, well, no wonder you're always so
cheap. Another one, I sold the oven that my son fixed on Highway 36.
That's the one that went under the water, right? And got rusty, you said.
Yeah. The burners none of the things could work. And my son put the tile. I'm pretty sure I have to ask him if he put the tiles in that oven too, because I know he put in the burners, painted it all first, and put in the burner, did all the inside work.
Gosh.
So he's an engineer, but
So
a
what,
lot of them were engineers that
they're all,
father's
they're all, very brilliant, you know, like,
yeah, I mean, when you think of how brilliant my cousin Mario was, unbelievable. And he's the master Morrow.
so your father used that name just his regular life, or did he change it all over?
To change it.
Oh, he did have to change it all over.
For business, yeah, he had to change it. So then he changed ours too. We were his children.
Didn't you talk about a long time ago that when I talked to you about you were having a hard time finding an attorney, and then who do you remember that attorney's name was?
We had a corporate attorney, Weinstein was his name, and
What corporation what were they with? Do you know?
He was just himself.
Okay.
I think he had a partner, but I'm pretty sure he had a partner. But he was the one that was on retainer. You know, we just kept him on retainer. And the same thing with Goldstein, who's our accountant.
Do you know where they lived or where their address was?
No, I don't know their address. The accountant lived in Brooklyn. I don't know if the lawyer lived in Brooklyn or in New York City, in Manhattan.
Yeah.
We called Manhattan New York City, but it's Manhattan.
Maybe you'll find some kind of papers with their names on or something, you know.
I know their names.
Oh, yeah. But like, you know,
But
like
she
there's so
also
many
had- my mother
Weinsteins
had
and...
her friend in the beginning,
Oh, your mother did?
Dr. Asola, and she lived in Brooklyn, and Marie Connolly. They were also lawyers. So they were also, you know, people that I looked up to was Dr. Asola and Marie Connolly. They were lawyers.
Right. So they helped out some then too with the business
in the
end?
beginning, I don't think they had a Mr. Weinstein on retainer. They ended up keeping him and putting him on retainer. But Dr. Asola also taught. She had so many degrees.
Gosh.
And Marie Connolly was part of her firm.
Hmm. It's all interesting, Madeline, you know, like,
It was interesting. I really had, and you know, I think most young people living in New York had an interesting life. At least, you know, the people I knew, I'm sure there were people.
there are a lot of poor people, though, that didn't
God,
have a
around
poor
there.
life.
I mean, I saw so much poverty. I mean, that's one of the things that my father, you know, wanted to help his people, you know, to help his own Italian Americans, because they had so many children, and you didn't have food stamps in those
Right,
days.
I know.
And New York City was the best city, the best place for what they used to call relief.
Oh,
But
did they help you more? Yeah.
But you had to be a resident in New York City for a year before you.
Okay.
And you had to be a citizen. And
Oh,
Many
okay.
of them weren't citizens.
Okay, I
So,
understand. So your father
My
wanted to help a lot of
too,
people
you
then.
know, helped all of those people because he, you know, finally had an ice plant in a coal yard, and he helped so many of his, you know, compatriots, putting them in small businesses.
Gosh.
So, yeah, I keep thinking of him too. I mean,
Where did your father get the stainless steel from, you know, to do his work? Do you remember that?
Oh no, I was so young.
Oh, that's
I
right,
was
you were
about
young.
2 or 3.
Oh, really? When he started with stainless steel?
When he made that stainless steel bread box.
Oh, really?
You know, I was really surprised because my sister, I was talking about it just a little bit before she died, and she couldn't remember it at all. And it used to be in a special place, you know. We used to have in uh, in the second house, when my mother moved to the house that I actually grew up with, I was about 5, and not quite 5, but we used to have a room that was next to the kitchen, which my parents used, which was down in the basement, but those basements were really almost for street level, because there was always a sub-basement.
Oh,
I
really?
wanted to look that up. New York City had so many sub-basements.
What's a sub-basement?
They're 4 feet below. Ours were always 4 feet below, that I remember, because they used to talk about it. 4 feet below the regular basement.
What did they do down there? Keep things cold?
No, they didn't do anything to it. I think it was just, that's how they believed buildings should be built. And I'm going to look it up in the computer. And then you had the basement. And I don't know, have you been to Manhattan? You've been to Manhattan.
Oh, yeah, a lot of times.
You know those brownstones that
Yeah.
have that, they have those high stoops?
Right.
Well, right under that is a basement.
Right.
Is an apartment. A lot of them now are apartments.
Right.
And and under those, I know, because that's the house I was born in, was that 4-foot sub-basement.
So
And then we had-
why was the idea of having that for, I wonder?
I have a feeling that, they considered that to be like, I don't know what proof, sometimes they would have water down, the one in Brooklyn that I remember, so maybe it was just to make sure that it was elevated enough.
Oh, maybe.
So, because I was, the house that I grew up with was in Flatbush, and that's going out to Long Island and to where the water,
Oh, yeah?
weren't far from, it took us a while, but you're not far from the Belt Parkway now. The Belt Parkway wasn't in existence.
There's so many roads up there that,
Yeah,
I don't,
yeah.
my daughter knows more about,
Yeah, do you know about the Belt Parkway? Yeah.
she
And
knows,
that wasn't in existence when I was young. We lived near Floyd Bennett Field. My father used to bring us up there to see. It was such a big thing to see a plane. So in those days, on Saturday, the pilots would bring you up for $1, and that was a lot of money. That was considered such a lot of money. But that's where we lived here.
gosh, so,
And there were still these big patroon houses where I lived, because Flatbush we lived on King's Highway. The king came down, and that's why they called that King's Highway.
I didn't know that.
But we had the patroon houses that were the Dutch like mansions. The people who owned that property would live in their homes, and we had some beautiful mansions there. About 3 when I was little, but one by one they were dismantled. And I think when I was about, maybe it was when I went away to college, they finally took down the last one where 2 unmarried women lived.
Huh?
And I remember coming back from Missouri this one time and brought my children to the Brooklyn Museum, and they had their library of this mansion in the Brooklyn Museum. And I've asked people if they ever still show it, and they've said no.
Really?
It's such a shame. It might be something that they change a lot. I hope they still have most of it.
Well, like,
reshow.
that's what your nephew, Vincent said too, like he looked back in I think it was Encyclopedia Britannica,
Yeah,
and he can't remember exactly what year, if it's 56 or what year.
sometime in the 50s where they have my father in it.
Yeah, but like he hasn't been able to find it yet. I think Scott's looking. I ask a lot of people on eBay, but like either people say do your own research, but like
Yeah.
where are you going to find them unless,
Really
and then, maybe
Yeah.
somebody will find it,
As I
the
said,
article.
My father was in Who's Who, and we had that book.
What was Who's Who book?
Who's Who in New York City.
All
My
right.
father was in it when Mayor LaGuardia was in it at the same time.
Oh, really? So maybe if you found him in the Who's Who book, you might find your
Yeah.
father. That might be
Probably
another
was
place.
1930 something.
1930 something. So he was in that book. That's a very important thing to know.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's something that,
Yeah.
you know, you didn't
And
bring
that-
up before.
That book we had my mother had it until she moved from Brooklyn, but I think at that time, I know at that time she gave all of our books to my cousin, and maybe I'll ask his wife, because he's long dead.
If she
And
has
she's-
anything.
She's still living, if there's any book of,
Who's Who.
yeah.
Well, that might be, what year was that, you think?
In the 30s, sometime in the 30s, because that's when Mayor LaGuardia was in
So that was Who's Who in New York then?
New York City.
That might even be able to be a find on the internet. You know, that's something different. I never heard of that
Yeah.
before.
Yeah, Who's Who in New York City.
Gosh. Yeah, I got about 1 minute and 50 some seconds left on here. What else do you want to say, Madeline?
Is that a movie? I didn't
This is a
realize.
movie, yeah, this is
Oh,
a
I
movie
didn't
on here too.
realize.
See, her camera can take movies too,
Oh,
yeah.
that's great.
Yeah, that's why I kept it on you. Yeah, like
Yeah.
Walter's ran out. Mine can take movies too, but like my memory card isn't as big as hers. Her memory card can hold more than mine, but she already had a lot of pictures on here, you know, so.
Well, I don't know what else to say except, you know.
It's any other kind of books that your father might have been in that you know of that people can look up?
No, I really don't. Well, he was in the different trade magazines many times, but
So what
least,
trade
you know,
magazines do you think they might have been
I
in?
can't remember them. The one I do remember is Institutions, and I wonder if he was in that one, and that was more like a paper. And so I used to read it because it used to come very often
Okay.
into our business. But there were so many. I wish they had them listed. I had at one time tried to find them in the computer, but there's not a listing.
Well, see, there's back so far. That's
Yeah,
a
'cause
problem.
30s, 40s, and 50s would be what it was.
So it's called institutions then.
Yeah, Institutions was the name of the. It was really like a great big paper, you know, almost like a newspaper, except that it was on very thick. It was printed on very thick paper.
Okay. This is about done, so I gotta turn this off. Well.
But it could be that